All right, American Soccer's Weird here on Morning Kick Around. My name's Robert Kerr. He's Jason Davis. And part of this segment, I'll preface it. I wanted to talk about what I know, and I wanted a bit of a vent session Saturday, a game that presented far too many annoying sports cliches. There was a bit of a Mount Rushmore in the game. I was doing play-by-play commentary for my team, Oakland County Football Club. And some of the triumvirate of the most annoying cliches were mentioned and ended up coming true. So I'll say I really get annoyed. I rolled my eyes when my color commentator, Brooks Lambier, former fill-in guest here on the show, when Oakland County FC went up 2 goals and ended up losing 3-2 in this game, for context, which was brutal. So halftime,
That's brutal,
2-0, the hometown team, Oakland County, leading 2-0 at the half. And my color commentator says, 2-goal lead, most dangerous lead in soccer. And I rolled my eyes like, get out of here. OCFC is so dominant. There's no way that could be a thing because, before halftime could have been 4 or 5-0 for my side. And then the second of the triumvirate of cliches popped up, a game of 2 halves. So what looked so bright in the first half became a nightmare in the second.
I think you're like, it feels as though, and maybe the chat can tell me if I'm wrong. Ultras, I don't know. I'm just not trying to set myself up against Robert in this situation, but I'm observing off of his discussion here about cliche. What you're bitching about is life happening, right? You're just bitching like things happen. This is okay. Brooks Lambier saying that 2-0 is the most dangerous lead in football. That could be annoying. I get it. And obviously, if you're a superstitious person, you could argue that it's Brooks's fault that Oakland County ultimately lost the game because he invoked the wrath of the soccer gods by pointing to that.
And I'll say another cliche, a curse of the commentator is very real. And from amateur all the way up to professionals, it happens all the time. A couple weeks ago in a Flint Bucks, the commentators were going on and on about how great the goalies were. What happened next? Goalie mistake.
Yeah. Okay. So this is confirmation bias at play, right? Like you only feel like these
Here
things.
we go.
Well, okay. I mean, you said this before the show that these cliches exist for a reason, and there's Daniel saying that too, right? These cliches exist for a reason. 2-0 is the most dangerous lead in soccer, or a game of 2 halves. A game of 2 halves is just an observation that sometimes the game is different in the first half than it is in the second half because somebody makes an adjustment or whatever, that one team gets motivated to come out and play better or whatever it is. Like something happens, it changes the complexion of the game. That's just an observation. That's an observation that is occasional. Lots of games look the same from first half to the second half. That game last night in Mexico City between Cruz Azul and Vancouver, there wasn't a game of 2 halves. That's a game of a really bad half and then also another bad half for Vancouver Whitecaps.
That's true.
So you are saying these cliches are so annoying, but they don't happen all the time. I mean, I know again they're cliches for a reason. They happen enough that we have noted them. But if your team did win 2-0, 5-0, you wouldn't be coming in here talking about cliches today.
I would say soccer's awesome today. I would be my hair would be out here if we had won that the way we should have.
Instead of this way, it would be this way?
Instead of doing that, I don't know. I missed my haircut appointment and I'm too busy to make another one, so it's a bit of a mess. But yeah, I mean, but one of the things that's unifying about these cliches, not to be completely negative on this, is it affects from the lowest of amateur levels, and it happens at the highest level of play as well. I mean, I'm not throw shade at you, but I'm sure Fulham blew at least 1-2 goal lead this season, right?
I don't recall. I don't want to remember that. I don't want to remember that. By the way, there are enough. Okay, there are cliches in sports. Let's just say that in the general sense, there are cliches in sports, but there are enough cliches in our game, in our particular love, which is soccer/football, that this guy Adam Hurry created a whole brand around football cliches. His handle on social media is football cliches, and he writes for The Athletic now, and he built that off of the back of talking about cliches, like just the things that happen in football that are cliches. And again, you've pointed out 2 very famous ones. Are there other ones? Are there better examples?
I was going to say one team just wanted it more was another one that came to mind with
Sure.
the slide that
Well,
happened in the second half.
the other thing is that we as human beings, not being omniscient, don't know why stuff happens sometimes. Like we just don't know. And we all want to pretend like we do, or we want some explanation. We want some way to explain. Our team was up 2-0 in the first half. We're looking great, and we lost the game 3-2. Well, I need to explain that. How do I explain that? Well, 2-0 is the most dangerous lead in soccer. This was a game with two halves. They wanted it more.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah, I guess that's us rationalizing it, trying to figure it out, make sense of the crazy world, and just make clarity of like a disappointing thing. So I don't know. It was a tough go on Saturday where, you know, the full spectrum of emotions. I think that's what's tough of it too, is like, you know, experiencing emotions is tiring on humans, and going from borderline unbridled joy from one period to an absolute nightmare is exhausting a little bit. And I guess we need to find whatever familiarity, what you know, silver linings we can to try to explain it away. And other ones was the team couldn't handle the visitors' dark arts was one that came up because there was technical dominance and up on top, and then once the game got scrappy and scruffy, it really turned.
You know what? The word naive gets used a lot in our game. People talk about naivete all the time, and we all fall into this. I'm like one of those people. Like, you know, I think of myself as a pretty decent writer. I mean, I'm maybe not as good as I used to be because I only just got now using the muscle again. But you
Yeah.
get into this place where you're like, I'm better than the cliche. Like, I'm better than those things. And I've had editors before say, like, you need to take this cliche out. You use this cliche too much, or this. And because what happens is it's not that these aren't true or that there aren't ways to sort of use them legitimately. It is that they become crutches without explanation, or there become ways to talk about the game that don't actually dive into anything. And again, what's fascinating about that for me is that a lot of time we're play acting about knowing, we're play acting about understanding. We're not actually in a position of knowledge. And so cliches become useful in that way. But then somebody says, well, you shouldn't use cliches. That's why, you know, we don't want to use cliches. That's why we call them that. That's why you are sort of ranting against them, because we're supposed to avoid them. But then you lack the means to explain what's going on because it is most of the time inexplicable.
Inexplicable indeed. And I mean, to be fair, that's why we love this game or love sports in general, is because you never know what's going to happen until the final whistle. You never know. That's why you play the game. Here's another cliche. That's why you play the game.
That's why you play the game.
Your one team on paper should win, and the other team looks like the big underdog, but you play out the game to see where results will come. Chris hitting us up with some more cliches. He hit the ball too well and turning the game on its head, and gave 110%. Always annoyed Chris. How do you give 110%?
You know, I do. I'm looking at a list. I pulled up a list. This game needs a goal. That's that's a good one. Like, obvious. Like, what are we talking? What? Yeah, of course.
Sure,
Duh. I guess so.
Goals
yeah,
are more fun than no goals. That's for sure.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. You know, probably first goal wins it. I've been known to say that. I've been known to fall into that trap. Like, first goal wins this game, and then like, oh nope, clearly not. Oh, that I was very wrong. And then you don't remember that you said it. You're like, oh, we move past that. Like, you just throw these out so that you can like frame up the game in a way again that sort of feels like you're saying something important, something insightful, I guess.
I feel like you're really in danger, and cliches are born and bred in preview content when you're talking about games coming up, that you can really fall into the cliche trap. Because thinking about the UEFA Champions League coverage, that obviously was a 5-0 drubbling PSG over Inter. I remember going into that game, there was a whole segment on one of the major networks saying that this game was going to come down to goalkeeping, and that Donnarumma or Sommer was going to make the critical save that would be the difference between a win or a loss. The game turned out to be 5-0, and obviously people trying to speak from positions of knowledge, but they're just guessing.
Well, look, sometimes people who know what they're talking about and know the teams at play will say things that sound like cliches. Like, this game will be one on the flanks. That sounds like a cliche, but sometimes it's true, right? Sometimes it is absolutely a thing. Or this game will be won in transition is kind of where we are. Where everybody talks about transition all the time, like to the point now where it kind of loses meaning. Of course, the game's about transition, right? Of course it is, but you can't you can't talk about the game in a way that that it sounds knowledgeable if you don't recognize, if you don't mention that. We don't accept. I guess what I'm saying is like we don't kind of like process this stuff as common knowledge, even though it really is. We feel like we have to continue to go and you
Reinvent
know,
the wheel.
yeah, go back to that place and use that over and over again. And I don't know. Shout out to your cliches, Rob.
Yeah, and this might be more of a catchphrase than a cliche, but I thought it was interesting that the former United States men's national team head coach Greg Berhalter, he did a bit of influencing with the way coverage was made. He made "We're going to play vertical" a cliche there during the qualifications process.
Verticality. He used the word verticality. That's the one that stuck in everybody's head. He said, "Yeah, yeah." I mean, things that get, I don't know if they're cliche. I guess they are, but like between the lines, talking about playing between the lines,
half spaces has become a thing.
Half spaces all the time. People who want to get real nerdy talk about zone 14 a little bit too much.
That's at the top of the box, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of that. Get stuck in. This is an old fashioned one. Yeah. That's how are they going to win this game? Well, let's gotta get stuck in. They're going to win this game. He's going to get stuck in.
And to be fair, in the game, to bring it back to the beginning of the point of the devastating 3-2 loss, was that in the second half, the visitors got stuck in, made it dirty, made it ugly, and they turned the game around.
Yeah, there you go.
With that said, though, if you're watching now, and if you hadn't hit subscribe yet, do so now. Put us a comment or even roast us. If you watching this haven't hit subscribe, put it in the comments. Why haven't you done so yet? If you want to take it a step farther, you can become a member. $3.99 gets you priority commenting, early access to videos, access to the Discord, which I have really started enjoying all the different threads of local, national, international game. So jump in there, become an MK Ultra. Outside of YouTube, you can support fiscally at coffee.com/morningkickaround. You can do a one-time donation or something regularly occurring. You can find us as a podcast. Search your favorite podcast platform for Morning Kick Around. And shall we kind of guide you towards Spotify, as there's a video version of the show on Spotify now.
Here are ways to help us, to keep us going, to turn us into a something that we want to take it 5 days a week. We want to get Rob a full time on Morning Kick Around. That's kind of the goal of this. Like, I'm doing the radio show. I got a soccer career. We want to get Rob full time. There are levels. You can obviously sign up as a member. That's a little bit of money every single month. It's a recurring situation. Okay, maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you don't want to forget about a subscription and get on Rocket Money's ads and all those stuff. Then you go to the Ko-Fi page and you can give us a one-time donation and do that. Boom. Hey, I want to give them $5. That's all I got right now, or that's all I can justify. Okay, fine. $5 is great. That's awesome. We would appreciate that 100%. The next level is going over to Spotify and watching the show on Spotify and sharing it on Spotify and rating it on Spotify and doing all those things on Spotify. We're hitting that for a specific reason. That's the biggest return for the show. And then after that is everything else. And again, maybe right after that is tell people about Morning Kick Around. Share it wherever you can. Share it in your group chats. Share it with your soccer friends. Share it on Reddit and X and Blue Sky and Instagram and Snapchat and what else we got out there? Bumble and Tinder. I don't know. Whatever works for you.
Yeah, find your MK Ultra of your dreams on Tinder there, right? Is that your saying?
That's it, sure. Yeah, why not?
Before we got to that, I was going to say, well said, support the show and all those ways that Jason said, and we'll end the show on a John Madden quote: "To win the game, you have to score more points."
That's right.
We'll be back on Wednesday. Look out for bonus content. And until then, everybody, enjoy your soccer.